looking back from your position of wisdom, what do you have to say to the American public about your cookie advocacy?
Well, I should have been advocating for, reduction in hamburger or steak prices. The funny undercurrent of that is that's kind of what started my political advocacy.
I know. It appeared to me that you were of that American evangelical stripe. When I met you, I thought, okay, so that's Charlie's cauldron, the matrix out of which he emerged. Maybe cauldron's not the right metaphor. But I'm curious, I think that your political rebellion took a conservative form.
Yes, the non-political, non-historical literature that we were being assigned was what I call pre-woke, very much anti-colonialist, anti-Western, that we are the contaminants on the world, that we are polluting other tribes.
I've learned a lot of things in the last 10 years that have shocked me so bad I don't know how to recover exactly. And one of them was that I'm talking to Charlie Kirk, and Charlie came out of nowhere 10 years ago and built the world's most influential organization of young conservatives. And he did that from scratch. He did that by going to universities pretty much single-handedly, setting up card tables, offering to discuss and debate all the issues that weren't being discussed and debated in these places set up for exactly that reason. And iterating as he grew, establishing conservative clubs on campuses all across the United States, building a grassroots organization, learning how to debate, despite the fact that he hadn't gone to college, and actually playing the role on campus colleges that the professors in the classes were supposed to play. And so, why watch my discussion with Charlie? Well, to learn who he is, to listen to how he did this. He had a vision and a calling, and he found his way and made it spectacularly successful while he was still very young, and has ended up playing a very significant cultural role, a transformative role that is by no means over. And so I think the podcast is interesting in and of itself because the story is so compelling, but it also contains many lessons, you might say, for those who are searching for a productive, adventurous, romantic way forward. So join me in my discussion with Charlie Kirk, founder and leader of Turning Point USA, the world's largest conservative youth organization. So I've got a gotcha question for you. So now you're warned. Okay, so you know that Robert F. Kennedy and Mehmet Oz, and I suppose Jay Bhattacharya too, are all hands on deck to restore American health. And that likely the biggest problem that's confronting us is insulin resistance.
I agree with that.
Too much, way too much sugar and obesity and all that goes along with it. But insulin resistance it's just devastating. It makes you old, it makes you diabetic, it's terrible. It interferes with your cognition, it increases the probability that you'll get Alzheimer's. And that's all linked to carbohydrate excess intake, right? You agree with all that?
I agree with that.
Okay, and yet, when you were in high school, one of the first things you did to begin your political career was agitate for a, reduction or stabilization of the price of cookies at the school?
We were against cookie inflation.
Yeah, so looking back from your position of wisdom 13, 14 years later, what do you have to say to the American public about your cookie advocacy?
What I should have been advocating for, reduction in the hamburger or steak prices. You see, that would have been a much better health approach. But all kidding aside, the funny undercurrent of that is that's kind of what started my political advocacy.
I know,
and
it is hilarious.
I kind of look back, even just 13 years ago, when, cookie prices were the number one, concern. This was before DoorDash, this was before all that. And I look at these high school kids now, what they're able to order into high school, they have entire cubby rooms of like half of the high school class that is just getting takeout. So in our high school in the suburbs of Chicago, the biggest thing was these basically homemade cookies that nearly tripled in price over the course of a year. So we started Students Against Cookie Inflation, which was a rather righteous effort, I might say.
How old were you?
I was, at that time, 16, 17 years old. 16.
And how much before that do you think your interest in the political developed?
I definitely had an interest. I'd say I was really fascinated by American history, why we were a great country. It was hard to not be politically oriented or opinionated based on the time that I grew up in. Understand the time and place. When I was in 8th grade, this guy named Barack Obama came onto the political scene from Chicago, and everybody had an opinion about him. In fact, he became...
Where were you at the time?
I was in the suburbs of Chicago. Wheeling, Arlington Heights area.
Yeah, okay.
And Obama was a homegrown, which he really wasn't, but he was, a senator from Illinois, a homegrown, almost quasi-messianic political figure. I mean, you remember how it captured the nation times 10 in the Chicagoland area. Remember, Obama did his victory speech in Grant Park in downtown Chicago. That's where he celebrated his victory in 2008. And so it was just an all-encompassing, almost, political moment where it was at very high social cost to be disagreeable with the rise of Obama in 2008. And mind you, I was a 7th or 8th grader at the time, and actually going into 9th grade. And so I decided at my very best to push back. Oh, really? Is he going to fulfill all these promises? Is he really going to be able to bring utopia? And admittedly, I was rather clumsy and shallow in my capacity to be able to articulate those beliefs. But I had something in me that wanted to push back against the orthodoxy of the time.
Okay, I met you. Do you remember when we first met? Was it 2016, 2017?
It might have been 17, 18. I came to Toronto because and still to this day, this is correct, I was so moved by your lectures and your videos that they significantly changed my life. And I really wanted to meet you more than anything else. And
well, I remember
you were kind enough to make time for that.
Yeah, well, I remember that meeting, and I remember trying to figure out who you were because of what you were doing and the fact that you had this remarkable organizational capacity. But what I'm interested in now, when you is what I'm very interested in trying to figure out what inclined you to take the path that you took. Now, you said, okay, so you said Obama, but you said something else at the same time. You said that you had been reading American history, okay, and that you were concerned with, interested in, and convinced by, I suppose, all of those, this issue of what made America great.
Correct.
Okay, so now, so this is interesting and worth taking apart because for decades, certainly since the 60s,